Aloha mai kako. I don't know where that music is coming from because I just quit Spotify. Oh, there we are. Aloha mai kako. Sorry for that little bit of a tech issue. Mahalo for joining us today. Super excited to be able to host this wonderful colloquium. If you signed on, you are here for Molokaʻi ʻāina Momona, community organizing towards a vision for food sovereignty. My name is Heoli Osorio, and I want to welcome you to the third political science colloquium of the semester. If you missed out on our two previous colloquiums of the semester, Interpreting the Coup and Between Oblivion and Forever, you can go over to our YouTube channel where we post them after the fact. Hold on, let me post this link in the chat. And you can find all kinds of UH Manoa political science content there. We will post this colloquium after the fact on our YouTube channel, so hold on to that link in case you have students or ohana or friends who wanted to come but missed out today. Today's colloquium is co-sponsored by the Value of Hawaii 3, Hulihia, The Turning. And so to give us a bit of an introduction about the book that inspired this particular colloquium event and to learn about their overall project, please welcome one of their co-editors, Craig Howes.
Oh, my kako. What I'm going to provide here, because I think we really want to be, above all, seeing the colloquium today, but I just wanted to give you a bit of background as to how this is tied in. The Value of Hawaii 3, Hulihia, The Turning, was published in October by University of Hawaii Press. It is within the Value of Hawaii series. It goes back to 2010. It's co-edited by Jonathan K. Kamakawiwo'ole Osorio, who is actually on in here as far as this webinar is concerned, Noelani Goodyear Kapua, and Aiko Yamashiro. It has about 65 or 70 essays, brief essays about all aspects of our current situation in relation to a kind of overall catastrophe, and then also hopes and visions for the future so that we don't end up with the old normal. Two of our contributors are our presenters today, Keani Rawlins-Fernandez and Malia Kutagawa. If you will look in the chat, you will see that I've posted a link to their individual essays, but also to the collection of the whole. Because when the co-editors started thinking about this book, the first thing that they realized was very important, especially given the economic circumstances, everything else, is this book is free and is available online for anybody who wants to use it for school purposes, for personal purposes, for starting community discussions. And what I've done is I've posted the link in there, that Scholar Space link. And to give you an idea, the book came out in very late October. We have already had 5,000 downloads. So what we're hoping to see that is multiply over the last while. We've had about 110 in the last 5 days. So it's something that is attracting attention, but above all, what we wanted to do is attract discussion and conversation about various aspects of Hawaii and how they're related to each other, not just individual problems in themselves. I think that's probably enough for now. Please feel free to download the book, and what you're going to get today is in part a sampling of the kind of intense and passionate and informed engagement with Hawaii's problems and futures and possibilities that we're hoping the book will encourage in many, many, many ways. So aloha ho, back to Haoli. Heoli.
Mahalo, Craig. Awesome. So I am super, super excited and pleased and privileged to get to introduce our two speakers for today. For those of you who don't know them, you're about to know them and be amazed by the incredible organizing that they are doing in their home communities. Malia Akutagawa is an associate professor of law and Hawaiian studies at our University of Hawaii at Manoa. She is a co-founder and board member of sustʻāinable, that's with ʻāina, Molokaʻi, and po'o of the Aha Kiole o Molokaʻi Island Indigenous Governance Council. And of course, Keani Rawlins-Fernandez is the Maui county council member representing Molokaʻi and serving all of Maui County. She is a kupa of Molokaʻi with a law degree in business administration. She and her husband, Rawlins-Fernandez, live on Molokaʻi with their 2 children, I'a and Kaikena. After their shared presentation, so what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to play a video for you folks. And this is a video about some of the efforts that both of these amazing wahine have been involved in. And then each of them will have some time to present to us. I need to Anyway, after this, we will have time for Q&A. So please, at any point throughout the conversation, submit questions via the Q&A function, and I will organize them so that they are, so that we're ready for a vibrant question and answer portion of our presentation today. Let me pull up this video and share it with you folks.
Oh, and Haley, I don't know why, but for some reason my screen is still filling.
Yeah, I will.
So get rid of it.
I'll fix that. Yes, here we go.
COVID-19 is beginning to disrupt lives around the world.
China has reported a total of
More countries in Europe have confirmed cases. Most of
Hawaii has its first presumptive positive case of COVID-19, the coronavirus.
We saw the virus spreading, we saw it coming, and we knew that it would eventually get here.
Of the 6 major Hawaiian islands, Molokaʻi has the highest per capita population of native Hawaiian residents. This small remote community is famous for its fierce opposition to overdevelopment. The island has retained a family-based lifestyle grounded in culture and tradition. But with only 3 primary grocery stores and 1 hospital, a COVID-19 outbreak would be disastrous for the island's 7,000 residents.
We're basically all family on the island, and losing even 1 person to the virus would be too much. We really needed to be proactive. The risk was people bringing the virus here.
Everybody gather over there. Our goal is to protect ourselves by not allowing the virus to come into our island. Whenever there's a threat to Molokaʻi, we always come together. And today, it's a threat not only to the island of Molokaʻi, but to the people of Molokaʻi.
The health department reports 10 new cases of COVID-19 in Hawaii.
Governor David Ige announcing a mandatory 2-week quarantine for all travelers. It comes as Hawaii residents are ordered to stay at home.
With a total shutdown of Hawaii's economy, many families on Molokaʻi were immediately impacted.
It took a long time before anyone was able to get unemployment, before they got their stimulus check. And there was a great need for food because a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck.
The state announced its second COVID-19 death today and the first case of the virus on Molokai.
The first case that Molokai experienced ended up being someone that worked at one of our main grocery stores. You know, being responsible, that particular grocery store immediately closed. The other stores also closed out of safety and protection of the community. When 2 of the 3 stores reopened, they had established very strict protocols.
They come out, take your order, you have a piece of paper, give it to them, give payment, they bring it back out, and you go home.
We had phone orders that we'd take 25 items, and then the people who stood outside could get 12 items, and we would shop for them. It was really difficult, but the people of Molokai really understood that this is what we gotta do to be safe.
It was a really rough time in that first 2 to 3 weeks.
Accessing groceries became more difficult when statewide food shortages led to a reduction in weekly barge shipments to Molokaʻi. The situation exposed the island's dangerous reliance on imported food. Fortunately, for decades, Molokaʻi residents have protected their abundant natural resources.
Our lifestyle on Molokai is very much grounded and rooted in the culture, in farming and fishing. We eat from the land, eat from the ocean.
It's made us here on Molokai realize that we can actually bypass the store and still survive. And there's been a lot of sharing. People who know how to get fish from the ocean, people who know how to get deer from the land, sharing with others who are planting.
When you live here, it's not about doing your own thing. There's very strong community service type kuleana. Kuleana being responsibility. We've always been that way. We've always take care of one another.
Nonprofits also stepped up. Sustʻāinable Molokaʻi, with its weekly mobile market, was able to help offset the impacts of the store closures by connecting customers with locally sourced food.
People were desperate for how can we get food. So we currently had our mobile market in operation. It already had an online sales platform. So we were able to pivot pretty quickly to switch to a drive-through model. And we saw our numbers double. We do have a somewhat limited supply of produce, but people were accessing, like our grass-fed beef and our shrimp and anything that we had frozen that was available.
Being on the front lines put Sustʻāinable Molokaʻi in a position to help coordinate a wider effort to help meet community needs.
The first thing we had to do was really start to try to bring people together. So I put out the call, put out a Zoom, just said anybody interested in talking about how we can support our community and those in need right now.
55 families that go to Kilohanas.
We had over 20 agencies, organizations, individuals jump on the call.
Signage so can set up a traffic flow when needed.
We have amazing, passionate, caring individuals and organizations that quickly stepped up to identify where the needs were and to figure out together how to address those needs within a really short time.
Partnering island agencies formed a collaborative network. Their top priority became assisting the local food bank that was seeing a major increase in demand, but also a serious decrease in food supply.
Hoʻokuʻikahi Aloha Molokai is the name of this group. And it basically means to unify in love for our island, Molokai.
Mask and glove is required. We are blessed here on Molokaʻi because this is what it's all about, helping one another.
Food bank usually brings in canned foods as well as chilled foods. What Sustʻāinable Molokai and this effort of Hoʻokuʻikahi Aloha Molokai was able to do was add to the food to the point where we could give 800 plus households cucumbers, kalo, papayas. They also brought in beef from Molokai, shrimp. We got fish that our local fishermen would provide.
Distributing locally sourced food not only helped feed the island, it also provided income for local food producers like farmers, ranchers, and fishermen.
I run a charter business here, but as of mid-March and the pandemic hit, I was literally out of business. And so I was looking for other venues to help my community. And because I know how to fish, I decided to go out and get fish and provide for the Molokai Food Bank.
The funding to buy the food came through rapid response emergency grant programs.
Writing grants and asking for money a lot of times it's a really long process. But during COVID-19, funders are reaching out saying, do you have any ideas to help serve your community? And if you do, we'll get you funds. Super appreciate them really trusting in us and stepping up to the plate to help serve our community.
Good to go. Oh, good. Yes,
sir. Thank you.
Thanks to comprehensive testing and community-wide effort in keeping COVID-19 from spreading, Molokaʻi only saw 2 cases in the spring. By early May, grocery stores fully reopened, but ongoing economic hardship means food bank distributions remain critical. Meanwhile, the long-term work to create more resilient local food systems continues.
Hello, good morning. What do you want to drink? I can take it.
So today we are doing our Ulu Tree Giveaway, and with that we're able to get trees out to our community.
You're welcome. So this is a Hawaiian variety, yeah, so it's going to grow really big.
Awesome.
I'm so happy that they created this for us to have something to grow, and not just any plant, like food and native food and things that we understand and we know how to use.
Our vision is to help people grow more of their own food. So we've been offering a series of farmer trainings that teaches people the basic gardening and farming skills.
Yeah, lettuce, cabbages.
Anybody notice anything about this particular plant?
We actually teach ag skills to help people become job ready for agriculture jobs, as well as teach sustainability and gardening.
So today we just got our chicks in. This is part of our chicken egg production workshops. Each participant is getting 25 chickens.
It's kind of ironic, actually. COVID was a blessing in disguise because as much as it's a hardship and it's a challenge, through all of this, we see our earth healing, we see our ocean healing, we see our mountains healing, we see our people coming together, we see our families healing, and our communities being even more tight-knit. But ironically, I see this as a vision of going back to ʻāina Momona. Yeah, we were always known as Molokaʻi ʻāina Momona, meaning Molokai of the fat lands or the abundant lands or the sweet lands. And the reason for that is because Molokai was known to just have an abundance of food.
So I think really the key to our ability to respond to COVID-19 has been just our community's willingness to come together, to learn from each other. And I really think that's going to be the key to going forward. We want to get to the point where whatever the next crisis is, not only are we okay, but we're thriving.
Awesome. For those of you who had never seen that video before, I'm going to find the link in my notes and paste it in the chat so you can return to it and share it with your friends and family. But for now, it is my pleasure to hand things over to Malia.
Aloha Molokai. Thank you all for being here. I'm just going to share my screen and kind of discuss a little bit about the COVID response and how we actually pulled it off. So in the chapter essay that I wrote, I talk about Senator English, and he did a presentation, I believe in 2017, and they were looking at climate change adaptation, and he introduced this very Hawaiian and Polynesian concept of the floating islands or mokulana. And these islands typically appear at twilight above the horizon as islands of abundance, peace, and equality where the gods and Kanaka walk together. And he said that we need to be thinking in this way when we look at climate change adaptation. Okay. So it really, his speech really struck me because it reminded me of the process that I went through when we originally had a sustainability conference and formed Sustainable Molokai. And I had this dream, I think it was like 2008. and it was of Molokaʻi floating in the heavens. And it was that floating island was more of a reality than the island in its physical realm. And I was reminded of the birth chant of Molokaʻi, Aloha Molokai, he akua, he kahuna, he pualena no umea. Born is Molokai, a god, a priest, the first morning light of Nu'umea. And so I wanted to know what is Nu'umea, and I learned that it is the raised place in the heavens. So it is a floating island. And that very much intrigued me and helped me to create this vision for sustainable Molokai with ʻāina as the emphasis. And what I saw in that vision was Molokai held by Hina, mother of our island. And I asked Auntie Zenny Sawyer to draw the logo for us. And I told her that it was like when the water is really Malia, and glassy, and you see the land reflected in the water. It was the reflection that was what we were yearning for. It was like we were yearning for heaven on earth, and that we were doing this kahea, calling forth this floating island to be with us. And so she created this logo that shows like manini, the manini fish, and you have a blackened image and then the white image, and it's like having a negative of when you develop film, the negative is the real vision, and then when you make the prints, that's actually the fake version. So I had that sensation that we were yearning for the real Molokaʻi, ʻāina Momona, to return. And so that was the basis for us forming the nonprofit. And so the first thing we did was we had a conference, and we had Nainoa Thompson speak at our conference as a keynote. And he really talked about vision. And he said, we need Molokaʻi in Hawaii. We need you to succeed at what you're contemplating today, because I really believe that we are in an enormous crisis, both here locally and on the earth. We are in trouble. When you talk about vision, you have to have it, because if you don't, somebody else will. I would like to talk about crisis and the issue of whether we get up and find success or we don't. The leadership that we need has to have these kinds of renewed qualities: courage, vision, commitment to the whole thing, and understanding the power of being unified. And so Nainoa also shared his vision from the perspective of his father. And he said that his father said, you need to understand the power of vision. You need to know your destination. The main thing you need to know is who you serve. Know your vision, know your values, share it, articulate it. They will come. Define your community by those who believe in you and your values, who come for the purpose to work, to learn, to grow, and to share. Do not compromise planning. Figure out every single step that you need to do to make sure that you are successful. So, we took those words to heart, and the things that we set up, like the mobile market, what it did was it prepared us for crisis, and that was the COVID situation. And it required us to respond very quickly, especially since we experienced closures in our main grocery stores. And, so one of the things we did was an agricultural needs assessment, because on Molokai, our number one industry is not tourism, it's agriculture. And we really wanted to boost agriculture on Molokai and market local produce. And when we did the needs assessment, what we realized was farmers just want to farm. They don't want to have to market, and they don't want to have prices set. I mean, the stores to set really low prices. They want to make their own, set their own value to it. And so we formed the mobile market several years ago. And, part of our visioning process was looking at these different spokes on the wheel. And we call it the sustainability wheel, because, ʻāina is really people and land together in unity. So these different spokes, we've been working on it. And mostly we've been focusing on food production and food security. And we're now focusing a bit on renewable energy. And everything has been culture-based, and everything has been education-based. And it has been only for community, not for self-interest in any way. And so we've been able to succeed based on this model. But when we responded to COVID, our organization was called to assist. And so, as you saw in the film, our executive director, Harmony, she helped to coordinate all the different organizations. So I kind of want to show you, like, how do you actually plan, in the middle of a crisis? So what helped me a lot to keep track of all the different partners was to create a mind map. And so, in the beginning, we were looking at food, so we had to do like a needs survey. And so we had different entities that did different need surveys so that we could figure out what the needs are. And from there we were like, okay, we need to work with our farmers in our mobile market and look at potential suppliers. So we had, kalo, uala. We wanted to put fresh food in the food bank boxes. Ulu, cucumbers, papaya, banana, yams and cassava, leafy greens. And then we were like, okay, we need to see if we could also organize our hunters. And so we looked at a lot of people, they just were giving to their neighbors and ohana. But I utilized my ahakiole structure, which is an indigenous governance system, to also go by moku and look at people who could offer deer meat, whether it's privately to families or through the slaughterhouse. So we figured out the packaging and processing parts for the slaughterhouse. So we have a Molokai livestock cooperative, and that also helps us with our food security. And so this shows like the custom cut, not for sale procedure. And we looked at areas where hunters might need funding or support. And then we also looked at, okay, if we actually have it USD certified, DA certified, this is what the process is for that. And then we looked at fishermen. So one of our board members, and who also did the film, Matt Yamashita, he outreached to a number of fishermen, and they picked these two target fish. And then we were able to get funding to pay for gas and packaging and ice for the fishermen, and also paid him for what they were giving us, not necessarily full market price, but enough to cover their costs. And then we also got another one of our board members for Sustainable Molokai got a waiver from DLNR, Department of Land and Natural Resources, to make sure that they didn't need to get commercial fishing license. Our county council person, Keani, was very much involved too. And so these are the different partners. And then we had to figure out, how do we coordinate food suppliers? So we also were worried about the kids So the kids were with the meal K-12 DOE grab and go, and we found that there was only like one site that was doing grab and go, so we had to expand. And then also it was very cost prohibitive for families to drive twice a day to the one location where they could pick up breakfast and lunch for their children. So we made arrangements by having different services like Queen Liliuokalani Trust, Molokai Community Services Council to do deliveries of the meals for the children. And then we also looked at Meals on Wheels for the kupuna, and then, hot meal events. And then the food bank was very critical, as you saw in the video. And so now we currently have increased the food bank deliveries for twice a month, and we feed about 1,000 families every 2 weeks. And then we had to think about longer term food storage. So we looked at different sources. Eventually, our nonprofit was able to secure the old Mauna Loa General Store site. So we had to really think about food processing, food storage. Luckily, the Molokaʻi Community Health Center allowed us to do a lot of that prep work for free. We looked at other sources. We looked at essential supplies. The police station was providing for the kupuna, Auntie Jan's House of Blessings. We had even, Queen Liliuokalani Children's Center, and we had our Ahakiole Mokupo'o Kanoi Davis, who has her own business creating masks for everybody. We looked at funding. There was a lot of funding from different entities that helped us as Sustʻāinable Molokai to distribute those monies throughout the community. We also looked at social media and educational outreach. So this Tyler Bougie Tanaka's Facebook page was where a lot of COVID information was posted. And then we had a filmmaker, she wanted to have her film show to assist. We talked about how, adult daycare got discontinued. So we as community looked at wellness checks of our kupuna by moku and doing yard cleaning and chore services for them. And then being an island that is usually neglected, we realized we have to look at la'au lapa'au and organizing our la'au lapa'au practitioners. So, some outreach was done there. For myself, I outreached to my colleague, Keoki Baklayan, who works at Center for Hawaiian Studies, and he did videos. And, I asked if we could have them posted to our Molokaʻi Media Center and Facebook page. So those were the kinds of things that we did. And that's, and now that has actually prepared us to deal with things like the deer crisis. So this is a Civil Beat article about the Molokaʻi deer crisis with, drought, severe drought causing all these mass deaths of the deer and overpopulation of the deer. And so now I'm in the midst of that kind of planning. And so I'm mind mapping that as well. And, the area, these are the different moku or different sections of our island that have different issues with the deer. So we've been working a lot with the Ho'olehua homestead farmers, and, they're looking at fencing up farms because the deer are invading their farms, and some farmers are being bankrupted because of that. And they're coming into the residences. So how do you safely hunt in those areas? So, since January, I've been holding multiple meetings with different committees, you know, and looking at sourcing out funds for fencing and things like that. And Keani, you know, as our county council person, has also secured county funds to assist us in the work of their population control. So these are just some instances of how we as a community are working together for food security and sovereignty. And with that, I will hand it over to Heoli. Mahalo. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing, Heoli. If it's okay, I can share screen again. Yeah, so, you know, one of the things after we did all this planning, I wanna just say, wait, hold on. Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen, sorry. So, you know, as I reflect on all this work we've done, I go back to what Nainoa said in his keynote address in 2009. He said, when you guys set the course, you are setting it for us. When you are successful, we will succeed. When you become powerful, we will be empowered. When you become intelligent and educated, teach us. I sense that the course you're taking is what you all believe is absolutely the one you gotta take, one you cannot let fail. And so that's what I wanted to impart to you, that by doing this presentation and talking about how we responded to COVID, and now we're looking at the deer crisis, it's really our kuleana to you to share what we have done so that other communities can also become more resilient. Okay, and with that, mahalo.
Mahalo, Piha. I'm gonna try to call Keani back to the stage. There she is. Awesome.
Mahalo, Heoli. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you good.
Okay, and then I'll project a little bit more. I can feel myself being quiet. Aloha mai kako, o Keani Rawlins-Fernandez, my Molokaʻi nui a hina, mahalo a nui for this platform to speak life into our vision, into Molokai ʻāina Momona. Oh, there I am. Okay, I wanted to mahalo the political science department for hosting this, and for all the authors, all the editors that put together the book that I had the honor to contribute to. I want to mahalo Malia for setting the foundation for me to work off of. Malia has always been such a strong mentor and guide, and for myself and many of us on Molokai. So mahalo Malia for that beautiful presentation. You know, and that's what we do here on Molokai. We malama each other. We malama our ʻāina, we malama our kuleana. And while, you know, we, as Malia said, we're often neglected, you know, we holomua and we continue our kuleana to each other. And we work hard to correct the narrative of Molokai being the poor king island, that we know who we are, and we know our identity. I wanted to also apologize. I am in 2 meetings at the moment. I'm our council meeting is continuing, so I'll be kind of listening for our council meeting as well. It took a pandemic for us to be able to juggle 2 meetings, and it's the closest thing to cloning ourselves that we have ever gotten close to. So as Malia said, so my essay and the value of Hawaii is about articulating our vision for Molokai. Knowing our vision and articulating it, as Nainoa Thompson spoke about at the conference, to set the course, and we're setting the course for all of us, for all the future Hanauna, all the future generations, and we're working hard to succeed so that we all succeed together. My essay is entitled Molokai, ʻāina, Momona, and it speaks of the history and legacy of Molokai. Our island once produced so much food that we helped to feed armies on the other islands, and we're known as Molokai, ʻāina, Momona. We have the longest contiguous reef in the Northern Hemisphere, which teems with marine life. Our North Shore valleys, east side, are lined with kalo terraces, which speak to that legacy. We continue to protect our subsistence economy that was first articulated by legendary Uncle Walter Ritty, where on Molokai, we don't only have a cash economy, we also have a subsistence economy. And that the cash economy should never supersede our subsistence economy, because that's how we on Molokai survive. Subsistence economy is where we malama each other and use traditional metrics for measuring success, involving the ensuring that we have we maintain our collective good, our common protection, and where we are all properly cared for. As Malia mentioned in her presentation, we've continued and perpetuated la'au lapa'au because it's something, healthcare is something that's kind of limited. Well, Western or American, European medicine, healthcare is limited on the island, but our la'au lapa'au is abundant here. So in assessing all of our physical infrastructure on the island, we see that, you know, our food independence, you know, remains in place, and all we have to do is restore it and go and invest our time and our energy back into it, because all of the lo'i terraces are still there. We have over 80 loko'i'a that line our south shore. So all of that infrastructure remains, and many of those many of those in our community have prioritized restoring it so that we can be more independent once again. My essay also speaks about our vision of restoring Ike Kupuna, our island was known for kahuna lanikaula, and that kahuna from other islands would travel to Molokai to learn about how to become a kahuna. They would need to learn to pray a pig to death, but to also be able to pray it back to life. And understanding that that power to that kahuna would have. And so in looking back into our legacy on Molokai of being a place of education, one of the things that we've been working on as a community is how to get back to that place of having a strong foundation in education. And one of the things that we've been moving toward is resource management and erosion control, and going back to our ancestral ways of food security. And the world is looking for that right now. And I believe that we can be a model. As I said, we already have the blueprint that our kupuna left us, and the infrastructure remains there. And so I guess I'll end my part of the presentation with ikava ma mua, ikava ma hope, and that the future lies in the past and it lies within us. Mahalo.
Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. I'm gonna welcome, there we go, there's Malia. Let me unspotlight you, Keani, so you're not all lonely up there by yourself. There we go. First of all, thank you both for taking the time to share this important work with us and to inspire us from your vision and your hard work in organizing in your community. I want to remind the folks, the attendees, that our question and answer forum is open. You can submit a question at any time. You can also raise your hand, and I can unmute you and you can ask your question verbally. But while you folks, kind of percolate and sit with all that we just learned, I have a question that I think I can jump us off with. I can't tell you how inspired I am by your guys' pieces in the book, by the way that you talk about developing food independence and food sovereignty. In particular, the mind map you showed us, Malia, just blows my mind in terms of, well, one, it shows how intricate a process of organizing you guys are going through, and then the number of people who are involved in feeding Molokaʻi, and not just feeding Molokaʻi any kind of food, but reconnecting people or continuing to honor the connection between our people and our ʻāina through the foods and the skills and the gifts that we have. And so I'm just really inspired by how you guys really demonstrated Molokaʻi ʻāina Momona, even in that the resource assessment and needs assessment you guys showed us. I'm curious because, I'm a city girl. I'm an Oahu girl. Auntie Loretta makes fun of me every time I come to Molokai. She's like, "Oh, you're gonna leave early. Like, you cannot handle the whole weekend here. Too slow." She always makes fun of me that I'm a city girl. But I'm really curious, based on your guys' experience and the work that you guys are doing, and because one of the things that at least Malia in your presentation that Nainoa talked about is how you guys are really going to be leading the way, and you're already leading the way. And obviously our islands, we have different needs, we have different contexts, we have different skills and resources. But I'm wondering, based on your experience, and based on the successes you've had, are there any specific approaches and steps or values or things that you think would be immediately implementable on other islands, or places where you would suggest those of us on other islands might start. You know, any kind of advice you have for those of us who aren't lucky enough to live on Molokai. Yeah, and that's a question for either of you, whoever wants to go first.
Up to you. You want to go first, Keani, or me? Okay. So, you know, now that I live on Oahu and I know more people and networking with people, I see a lot of, you know, Oahu has a lot of intelligent people. You know, and on Molokai, we have, you know, the same people wearing multiple hats, and so we get really burnt out. I think all it is a matter of bringing together those people with knowledge. And I think the ahakiole structure, where you weave multiple expertise of people together to form a strong cordage. If places like Oahu and other islands can organize knowing who their experts are in different areas, I think it has to be an interdisciplinary thing, because there's so much expertise in many disciplines, but we don't necessarily talk to each other. But honestly, we have to organize it like luau. Like, you know, who can make the raw crab, who makes the limu, who's the luau guy. And we, as Kanaka, we know how to organize such things. And I think we apply that same logic of that ahakiole, you know, of that weaving of expertise. And we begin to look at, I think, the different the different biocultural zones, and what we need to do to malama each area, and then overlay that with the contemporary issues we're dealing with. You know, like, we're islands, and we're gonna be the ones most vulnerable to climate change. So we gotta think of, like, okay, you know, we need guys who are law and policy experts, political science experts, that's gonna try to know how to navigate the different laws in order to look at things like retreat, you know, coastal families. You know, we need to look at how can we replicate places like, you know, what is that place? Kukuakali Valley, you know, you got Eia, these kipuka of abundance, and you gotta just scale it up. So we gotta be able to talk to these kind of grassroots guys and see how they're doing it, and make it easier for people to do that on traditional land. So you might be looking at the law guys that can look at different zoning structures and land use policies. But if we operate it like a luau or an ahakiole, we can begin to tap into that vai of the knowledge that we have in maybe more urban areas like Oahu and on the other islands. So it's possible. It just takes organization, I think.
Ew. Mahalo.
The only thing I would add to that, Heoli, because I agree with Malia's comments, is actually what Malia had said in a video that she did, which is, you know, for a lot of decision makers, the approach that's often taken is on sustainability is how close can we get to the edge until we fall off? And that's a terrible approach. You know, our kupuna's approach was how much abundance can we create? You know, and that really should be that approach again, because the approach that we've been currently following, that decision makers that are in many seats take is, you know, like sustainable yield of our aquifer. How much water can we draw from our aquifer before we ruin it? You know, and that is gonna be our demise. We are islands, and we have to think like island people. And when we have decision makers who, you know, may not be from islands, they may not have that understanding because it's not a continent. We don't have an endless amount of space, an endless amount. Well, and there isn't like and an endless amount of resources, which it isn't an endless amount as they're finding like in the Colorado River. It's being drained right now. I'm being called, and I'll be right back.
Mahalo, Keani. Awesome. It looks like we have a participant has raised their hand, Tishalyn Reed. So I think if I click allow talk, it's just gonna unmute you. So hopefully you can ask your question. Maybe you have to unmute yourself. Are you there, Tishalyn?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, aloha. Thank you for having me. I'm with Myron B. Thompson School of Social Work, and I'm from Molokai. So I wanted to, jump on and see what this was about. So my question is to Malia, or not really a question, just more of an appreciation. So we're from Homestead. We're Ho'olehua side. I don't know if you know Auntie Ochi Bush. My dad is her brother, Uncle Sonny. So we own about maybe 100 acres up Homestead. And we have so much problems with deer that when I saw your map, like I got so excited. I took a picture because I wanted to send my dad to tell him there's stuff going on and don't worry, they're working on it. So I just wanted to mahalo you guys for like freaking taking that step, because I'm not at home anymore. I am on the island of Oahu now. And just to see your guys's action is like freaking amazing. And we're freaking titas, we freaking all from the same island. So I just wanted to mahalo you. And hey, you don't know how excited I got when I saw your map. So I just wanted to mahalo you guys.
Yeah, and if you email me, you can just check me out online. It has my email, but I have all the meeting notes and mind map. I can make that available to you.
Oh, thank you, because and it's so hard to let people come on because it's still like home lots, so it's dangerous when they're just going in freaking randomly shooting, and they're not just using regular guns. They get like the freaking automatic ones going.
Yeah, we actually, I just had one meeting on that, and it had, we're having the Molokai Bow Hunters Association.
Oh, awesome.
We get air rifles and Molokai Hunting Club, and we're working by sectors.
Oh, nice. Kalamaya'u, I forgot we're being recorded, and I just went full on mo.
No worries, T.
But yeah, so I just wanted to mahalo you. Thank you so much. At least we know like stuff is happening, and that's freaking amazing.
Mahalo. I have actually another Nino. As a reminder, folks, Keani had to step off for a little bit because she agreed to do this meeting, even though she's in the middle of a council meeting. Talk about like kind of speaking to what you said, Malia, that people are stretched thin on Molokai. People are working really hard. They're wearing 60 different hats. Looks like actually Craig has a question. So Craig, you want to unmute yourself? There you are.
Hello, it's for Malia. I was hoping Keani would be able to answer it too, because her essay speaks to it. Her essay starts out with that final hearing where Molokai Ranch basically bailed after years of trying to divide the community over jobs and various other things. So the question I have is, in the wake of that, she talks about how things have come together differently, even though that seemed to be a kind of catastrophe for a lot of people. And I was just wondering how in all of this with the mind maps and the organization, whatever, how have you dealt with, or to what degree have you been dealing with either controversy or conflict or disagreement? How are you able to keep everybody sort of working together while at the same time recognizing that there are really different opinions about certain things?
Well, the deer crisis is actually showing guys who are arch enemies in the same Zoom rooms. So it's because we have that common love for the deer, and it's become a part of our culture and major subsistence food. I'm seeing people like we're on the opposite ends on the Mo'omomi community-based subsistence fishing area. issue now in the same Zoom room. So I think we unite in times of crisis, and we unite when we have a common love for something.
Mm.
So, the one guy who has been very much an opponent to the CBSFA, he's actually been super helpful with the hunting issue. He runs the bow hunting um, club. So, I'm learning a lot about air rifles and bows and how deer run, from someone that I've actually went up and up against on the CBSFA issue. So it's been kind of humbling in a way, but really encouraging that we can work together.
Mm.
And then also with respect to Molokaʻi Ranch, we got some world domination plans going on there too. The community wants to buy Molokaʻi Ranch. As I'm looking at the deer crisis, I see even more so we need community needs to own Molokaʻi Ranch because it becomes sort of an absentee landlord.
Mm.
And though they've been cooperative in terms of helping with the deer control issue, I see a lot of the community suffering, and we need to begin to reforest that area that has become so denuded. Much of Molokaʻi Ranch's lands are really degraded, and it's affecting our food security, our food sovereignty. And as I see, Mauna Loa area is a high part of our island, and a lot of our residences and Kaunakakai town is located in a coastal area. So we got to plan retreat. So I think if the community owns Molokaʻi Ranch, we may be able to more fully restore the watershed there and the various ahupua'a and bring our population to higher ground. So I'm really seeing that as a key to what needs to be done in the future. And so part of it is like how I said, I had the dream in 2008, and we were able to prepare for 2020 COVID. So now I'm looking 10 to 20 years ahead, and we need to secure Molokaʻi Ranch and begin to plan for the climate change. So I think that is, to answer Heoli's earlier question, it is about that vision. You cannot take care of an issue when it's right upon you. You got to be able to see ahead and prepare for that, Yeah.
And just a further follow up on that, how in that envisioning does either tourism or the establishment of more residence and upscale housing on Molokai, because those have been solutions offered for years, is it even part of the vision?
No. But I do, I do sense that what will happen, just as Nainoa said, once you succeed, you got to show the rest of us, what I think is going to happen if the other islands don't respond and we don't have the community working on this, because I think government, no offense to Keani, is somewhat useless. They cannot respond as quickly as community can. So it's incumbent on us to respond. So what I see is if only Molokaʻi moves forward, what's gonna happen is we're actually gonna get people coming back to our island. Those who had to leave because there weren't any jobs, and we're probably gonna attract more people who are sustainability minded and more Kanaka who want to work the land to come to a place that is more Hawaiian and more progressive looking. So it is what Keani say, kawau mua, kawau hope. We operating from looking at the wisdom of our kupuna in the past and bringing it forward into our present and our future, and that is our future. The past is our future, and I think the world is learning that. And so I have a feeling in the next 15 to 20 years, our population is gonna expand, and we have to prepare for that. Yeah.
That's probably a pretty good segue into one of the questions that were typed in by Malu Castro. They ask, Mahalo nui Keani and Malia for your wisdom and work. It feels really clear how the response of Molokaʻi to COVID and now the deer population, through a vision of collective governance and food sovereignty, represents an example of decolonizing and indigenous self-determination succeeding where settler states fail. I was wondering, what are your grandest dreams for this kind of work? What are the next issues or goals that could finally be addressed with this kind of work? And can this lead to Molokaʻi being the sovereign breadbasket for the Kanaka of the island? Can there be a school or place of education for Kanaka and other indigenous folks to come learn the power that Keani talked about?
That's an excellent question, Malu. And I also know Malu from his roots on Molokaʻi and Meyer family, and he's very pono, in the way that he looks at things. And their ohana is, chiefest lineage, and they have like about 2,000 acres. And so I've spoken with Malu about ways that we can help to restore their lands as well. So I see working with Malia as a big piece in that, but also what I envision is that we're going to be creating like almost like redefined land tenure system. Nowadays we can call it eco village. So I imagine us doing sustainable industries. I want to be able to reforest and repair our streams from the degradation of ungulates, and it's going into the fish pond and our reef. I want to create jobs in that respect, and then green building jobs. So provide housing for everybody, provide forestry type jobs, conservation. I imagine us also having our own fleet of sailing vessels retrofitted with solar and wind to do shipping of goods between the islands rather than rely on young brothers. If we get Molokaʻi Ranch, we might look at improving Haleolono Harbor, only not for tourism, but for some of the shipping between islands, because I think we might have to, like ancient times, support the other islands in crisis. And I think it's just going to attract more people. So doing more sustainable industries and showing that we don't need to rely on GMO monocropping. We don't need to rely on things that destroy ʻāina in order to make money. And I think we're beginning to demonstrate that through Sustʻāinable Molokaʻi with our food core, with our food hub and mobile market, and now we were able to get funding pre-COVID to develop 50 new farmers. So that has been critical to this response. And so I just see us growing in that way and being 100% on renewable energy. The things that I'm worried about is I want to make sure that our water pumps are fueled by wind and solar, because if we, run out of fossil fuels or tsunami comes in, we're not going to have fuel to run these water pumps. And so for me, it's water, water, energy, shelter, the basics. And what I want to do is create pu'uonua in every moku. So disaster preparedness is going to be really critical. So again, because we're the orphan child of the islands, nobody's going to think about us or worry about us. So what we need to do is begin to look at things in walking distance or bike riding distance that use like po'alima days for community to work. So we got to create like our own biofuel. We got to make like apothecary and different la'au lapa'au that we can dry and make tinctures out of. So we have that kind of first aid kind of relief. We gotta be canning produce and meat and things like that, and making smoked meat. So we gotta think of like how can we be like food secure for, I don't know, like a month, just in case no services reach our island. And we gotta have it in different moku. So for me, I wanna us to resolve the deer situation, and have this thing called holistic management to create a healing effect on the land, and then work the different pu'uhonua and different moku for disaster preparedness, and do green building industry and conservation, reforestation stuff. Yeah, and then right now what we're doing too is we have an invasive limu situation, gorilla ogo, and we already have people working on how do we make economic benefit out of this invasive limu and then replant with native limu. So it's about also, restoring our ahupa'a from Mauka to Makai. So making sure that we maintain our traditional foods and restore the ecosystems by which they thrive. So that's part of my vision.
Yeah, you make me like move Molokai. No worries, no worries. I'm not gonna invade, but I see a lot of, I mean, beyond the value of really honoring Kawama Mua, Kawama Hope, and the people who live on Molokai, and the vision you folks have. I see so much value and reality in the fact that many of us on other islands will not only be inspired by your work, but will need your support from time to time. And so I'm just really in awe of you folks. We have another Ninau from Dean Jonathan Osorio. He's asking, do you see the county and the state maybe continuing a hands-off approach with Molokaʻi, or do you have any concerns that between speculators and politicians that keeping your governance local will be a struggle?
Well, with Keani being our county council rep, we're in good hands. So he's very much involved with the work we're doing, and Keiki ʻāina. So we want to continue to work with our county council person. State legislature, a little bit iffy. I hate to call out our state legislature like that, but I feel they can do more. But in Molokai, we just do our own thing. We kind of MacGyver stuff because we expect to get nothing. So really our power lays in community, and we yes, that is kind of true. We already seceded from and our UHC extension agents said we're socialists, And the things we do is very much like that. So we're not worried too much. But one area I think is really critical, and if people can maybe pound the pavement and shed light on this issue, is due to COVID, the Maui College is considering letting go of the lease of our farm, our community MCC farm, and UHCTAR is considering taking on that lease, but there's a lot of issues that due to derelict management by Maui College over many years, they didn't make any improvements to certain areas that need improvement, and so UHCTAR is thinking like we don't want to take on those liabilities. But if you saw in the video, we had UHCTAR extension agent Jennifer Hawkins. We work a lot with Glenn Tevis as well, and they're in the heart of the Hawaiian homestead community, which are where all our farmers are, and And Sustainable Molokai has been key in working with UHCTAR and UH Maui College. And so that is really important to our food sovereignty. And if there is a way to save that farm and transfer that the lease to UHCTAR, if anybody can, shake some trees, I would really appreciate that. We really need that to maintain our farming programs. So yeah, that is one concrete way I see the state stepping in. And I really hope that our Representative Lindy Coit, who is a Hawaiian homesteader, realizes that and make sure that we able to save that farm and keep it in university hands.
Yeah, mahalo. It looks like maybe we have one more Nino from Lilinoy Irvine. So I'm gonna give you the mana to unmute, Lilinoy, if you want to ask your question. Oh wait, hold on. There we go. Try now.
Hi.
Hi.
I enjoyed your concept of the like working in a luau. So what is actually working for Molokaʻi is that when you have a successful luau, everybody is contributing to that goal. Because you have all of us now and all these individuals and those that are about to watch the webinar later, where and what can we do as individuals where we are now to make an impact in our own little community to set the forefront of what you guys are actually doing? Because if you like an infection, you put one over here, it spreads. Yeah, so you have us here that's on this who's interested. So what can we do on an individual level where we're at right now? And eventually as it grows and multiplies and become infectious, then you have more. So as an individual, I would like to know, where do I start as an individual and what can I do?
Okay, so just to tell you, like with Sustainable Molokai, it was a pipe dream amongst a handful of people. So all you need is about 5 crazy guys like you to start a revolution. I'm just letting you know. You just start wherever you are. But if I was thinking of Oahu, and I'm not sure what island you're from, so I already am trying to create a Kanaka Illuminati to create this Vaula'au project. So I want to do like some guerrilla gardening where we go plant trees in the Vaula'au, permanent fruit trees, and we reopen our kupuna infrastructure, because whether the state going, bury its head in the sand or do something, we're gonna have to be making a lot of food
Yeah.
upper areas. So for me, like, gotta do a lot of guerrilla stuff. I think it's, one of the things me and Uncle Walter really try to get is this traditional land use zone under the land use commission. They have urban, agriculture, rural, conservation. But what I want to do is create a new zone called the traditional land use zone, and make it like that Kaka'ako district, how they can make their own permitting.
Yeah.
I like make one Kanaka permitting where we can get on these prime lands. We actually identify those lands, whether it's lo'i or malakang areas, and we make it easy for people to go and live on those lands and produce food without having to go through a myriad of permits. Or we create our own very easy, streamlined permitting system. Very reminiscent to the huis that would gather and purchase large tracts of land to farm. I want to make that easy rather than what's currently happening with all our agricultural lands turning into gentleman estates. We got to just stop that stuff already.
Yeah.
So things like that, I can see just, and for me, it's like the guerrilla gardening could be like, you just adopt like one section of an ahupua'a. You go get your backyard nursery of native trees and different fruiting plants and ulu and all that kind of stuff. And you just go and plant them secretly. I know this is going to be on YouTube, but I'm just saying, plant them secretly or make your neighborhood.
When it accidentally pops up, like
and then every weekend you bring water bottle. You go hike up there and you put water until the bugger get pa'a, you know. And then it's like, oh, where did this forest come from? And you just act like nothing. Many hunikang style.
Yeah, because my idea was, you know, like once you set the forefront, because you guys are paving the path, you don't want that to become where, like how Oahu is, or, you know, like people become vampires and they suck out from where it's over. So it's easier to like make where, like, you know, spread it out. This is what we did. This is how we did it. And you know, you pass on the mapping, or like what you guys did, the procedures, so that they can duplicate it without taking the resources away from everybody else. Because you know, life, sadly, that's how it is. That's how the government is. And we as Kanaka gotta, you know, we all malama and take care. But Hawaii people, we get too much aloha sometimes. That what happened when we was so aloha was they stole our land and stuff. So we gotta be diligent in our causes and what we do. And even though you're setting the forefront, also gotta be cautious about, you know, like we don't want them to overuse and like take advantage of Molokaʻi now. Like, oh yeah, now you guys are somebody, now I like something from you. Like, oh hi, my cousin, my long lost cousin. So to prevent that kind of stuff, that's where I was coming from. That's why it's like spreading wherever the individuals are, who we are right here, right now. We have some kind of passion that's brought us here. So we can start, you know, something so that, hey, stop taking from my cousin them over there. They're in hard work, you know, and you guys like take all they work. So we got to do something ourselves too. We cannot just take advantage of other people. But thank you guys for all you're doing, because you're setting the example.
Mahalo, Lili Noi.
Mahalo.
We all can do planning. We just gotta see there's no limitation. And even if get limitation, you picture it as a leash that has a lot of give, and you take them as far as you can go.
That honestly seems to me like a great place for us to close our time together today. I love the people I love the most in this world are the folks who remember that this ʻāina has always and will always be our ʻāina. And so as long as we are doing things in honor of her, whether it's secretly planting any kind native trees and food in her forest, I really appreciate the way that you kupa of Molokaʻi are always showing us that, you know, a really big part of sovereignty is living sovereign and governing and doing the work to be sovereign every day. So mahalo to you, Malia. Mahalo to Keani for taking the time out of your very busy day to speak with us today. Mahalo to the Value of Hawaii crew for creating an opportunity for so many of us to share the work that we're doing across the ʻāina and for folks to learn. For those of you who didn't get the link earlier, here are the links that Craig Howe shared at the beginning of the program. You can download the entire book for free, whether you're a university student or not, via that link. And you can we also link specifically to their chapters, so you can take a second look. With that said, just want to offer it back to you folks if there are any last mana'o or last words you want to share. Yeah. Molokaʻi motto, yeah? Go for broke.
Go big or go home. Yeah, I totally echo Malia. You know, I was so happy to hear the feedback from some of the audience inspired.
And 2 no's.
Oh, shucks, I almost voted wrong.
The main motion as amended.
The struggle is real.
Sorry, mahalo.
No, I just want to thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm so inspired by those who are inspired by this, by the book. And mahalo nui. Aloha.
Mahalo. Mahalo to you folks. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend. And, go do something good for the ʻāina. Get off your computers. Mahalo, guys. I'll see you guys later.